In this episode of Locked On Capitals, the Washington Capitals fall to the St. Louis Blues 5-2. I talk about the trade deadline. Did the Capitals do the right thing in just picking up two forwards? Shouldn't they have picked up a goaltender? And then I talk about the road ahead. The Capitals have some big games coming up, a big divisional game Monday against the Hurricanes. Locked On Capitals starts right now.
Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello, and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me, and thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen of the day. As always, we're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So if you don't want to just listen to this on your favorite podcatcher, head on over to YouTube and see how it's done live. All right, the Washington Capitals fall to the St. Louis Blues by a score of 5-2. And got to be honest, a little surprised with how they're playing as of late. I know they won every game, regulation game before these last two games, but they had a rough go of it tonight, shall we say. It wasn't from a lack of effort by any means, but we hope to get the Capitals back in the win column. So we'll talk about the game tonight, and then later in this episode, we will talk about the Capitals at the trade deadline. They picked up Johan Larsson and Marcus Johansson. Is that all they needed to pick up? Shouldn't they have picked up a goaltender? And then we will talk about what injuries are with the Caps and the Caps' road ahead. All right, so to the game tonight, like I say, the Washington Capitals fall by a score of 5-2. It was Vitek Vanacek in net, and then it was Husso in net for the St. Louis Blues. Binnington, as you know, is their number one netminder, but it was his night off. Husso, who has a record of 15-5-4 with a 2.34 goals against average, a .926 save percentage, and two shutouts versus Vitek Vanacek, who was 16-8-5 with a 2.37 goals against average, a .918 save percentage, and three shutouts. So kind of an equally matched goaltending duo, I got to say. So it was a good game, but as you know, the St. Louis Blues always bring a physical game, and they did not disappoint tonight. The Washington Capitals did as well, but it just seems like there's a lot of teams that the Capitals have been facing as of late that bring a big physical game. Carolina was the other team that comes to mind. So the Capitals are going into the last quarter of the season. This is crunch time. So I know that the Capitals are kind of locked in at the position where they're at, but they really should get back into the win column. And like I say, the schedule this weekend kind of lends itself to that as they play the Sabres and the New Jersey Devils. But you don't want to get stuck into what they call a trap game. Those are the games that you go in and you think, well, I'm playing the Sabres or the New Jersey Devils. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to beat this team. And then they just step on you and it's all over with. So the Capitals have got to be ready. The Capitals are 36, 19, and 10 and 8th in the East. As you know, they are 4th in the Metropolitan Division, looking squarely up at the New York Rangers. The Caps' last meeting against the Blues, they lost by a score of 5-1. It was a big game for the Capitals tonight, as it was the first game with Marcus Johansson back in the lineup. It's been since 2017. Wow, how the time flies, doesn't it? Since Marcus Johansson played with the Capitals. He played with the Capitals for 7 seasons, but the sad part for Marcus, I guess, is he left the year before they won the Cup. Well, hopefully they can make a run for it this year, and Marcus Johansson could put his name on the Cup this year. It was a big game because the Caps faced a former teammate, a player from down under by the name of Nathan Walker. Nathan Walker is one of those players that I thought was going to have a role on the Washington Capitals, but he kept trying every year, and it just seemed like he never found his spot on the team. So that's why they moved him on to the St. Louis Blues. But regardless, I'm happy for Nathan Walker. I don't care what jersey he's wearing. I'm just happy for Nathan Walker as a player. I think he was a great player for the Caps, and he doesn't see a lot of time on the big team, the St. Louis Blues. But I hope that he's able to make his way onto that St. Louis Blues team. This game, the Washington Capitals were without Oshie, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Dowd, and Hagelin. So the Capitals are suffering with a lot of injuries, and that's primarily why they picked up those two what I would call depth forwards, Marcus Johansson and Johan Larsson. And I know a lot of people were thinking, why didn't they pick up a goaltender? And we'll talk about that later in the show. But early in the game, Schenn was robbed. It hit the post. That was one of the ones where he was driving towards the net and he hit it. And I'm like, oh God, it's going to be 1-0 Blues here right away. And then Vertuzo gets a penalty for a cross check. Caps go on the power play. So I'm like, well, Schenn, had that shot on net, but now we're on the PP. Maybe we can get something going here. Caps score 10 seconds into the power play. Kuzi gets his 22nd with Wilson and Carlson on the assist. And Kuzi, man, he's number 2 on the Capitals this season in goal scoring with Tom Wilson at number 3. And wow, what a happy change for Evgeny Kuznetsov. Evgeny Kuznetsov, who was on the trade block, the chopping block last season. And then there was a lot of Capitals insiders that said, well, they would love to trade him, but they won't get enough for him. Well, I'm glad that the Capitals and Brian McClellan had some common sense and just realized that Evgeny Kuznetsov was going through a tough patch, because look at him now. 22 goals on the season. Could you imagine if they passed on Evgeny Kuznetsov and he had that kind of production on another team? I think the Washington Capitals would be kicking themselves. And as always, Vitek Vanacek was sharp early. Brandon Saad then goes on to get his 19th goal of the season. It was a highlight reel goal. It was just one of those where he's driving towards the net. All the coverages were broke. He drove towards the net and slammed it home. I'm sure it'll be on the NHL Network tonight, and it should be. It was a heck of a goal, regardless of who scored it. So Brandon Saad gets on the board with the equalizer, and it's 1-1. And then Mantha to Wilson, number 3 on the team, gets his 19th goal of the season, and then it is 2-1 Caps. And just a crazy stat they were rolling through the game there is that Tom Wilson was skating at 20 miles per hour. Can you believe that? That's how fast they skate. That is unreal to me that they go that fast. I had no idea that they skated that fast out there. I mean, I ride on my bike maybe sometimes that fast, but man, it boggles the mind that they're able to get that much speed. So goal leaders on the Capitals, like I talk about, Ovi, who has 40 goals. And I think that obviously, I think there's enough time there that he should be able to get to 50 goals. Tom Wilson with 22 and Tom Wilson with 19. Kuzi was on a 10-game point streak, 7 goals, 6 assists, Cap 7-1-1 during that streak. So if there's one thing to notice there is that when Evgeny Kuznetsov is producing, the Capitals are winning. So you got to make sure that you keep these big goal scorers, most notably the top 3 there, Ovi, Wilson, and Kuznetsov, in the lineup. Because, could you imagine if you were missing those 22 goals from Evgeny Kuznetsov, or the 19 from Tom Wilson, or 40 from Ovechkin? Man, I don't think the Capitals would have won nearly as many games. So it's just really important to keep those guys healthy and to have that needed depth if called upon. So then the Blues go on the power play, cross check on Schenn by Kempny. And it was one of those games, it was a physical game. And I think that Kempny just kind of lashed out because he was frustrated. And then O'Reilly gets the power play goal with the equalizer. It's 2-2 at the first intermission. So the Capitals had it knotted up at the end of the first, so it was a good sign. And then they start the second. Johansson first game with the Caps since 2017. The Caps are on the power play early. The Blues were penalized twice. Eller gets drilled into the boards, and that was the one where 2 of them went off on a penalty. On that, as they should. It just seems like they were really kind of Berube, the coach of the Blues. That's what he dials up, is a physical game, and they definitely brought it. I think that the Capitals' reputation casts a wide shadow, and they know that the Washington Capitals bring a physical game. So guess what? The Blues were ready for it as well. So Hathaway also gets penalized on that particular round of activity. And then Vanacek robs Kyrou. Vanacek in beast mode, and he was primarily the entire game. You really can't fault Vitek Vanacek. I think that he played very well. I still think that he solidifies his role as the number one netminder. So on 37 shots, he made 33 saves. That's good for a .892 save percentage. And like I say, you really can't knock anything that Vitek Vanacek is doing out there, because you know who's number two is Ilya Samsonov. So, I mean, they got to make sure that Vitek Vanacek stays healthy. Nathan Walker, former Cap, then gets a goal 3-2. And he looked pretty happy about it, I got to say. And, it's kind of sticking it to his former team. I guess I can't blame him. Colton Paracco and Mantha fight for the puck. Mantha gets the penalty. It was worth it, or it might have been a breakaway goal. And that's what I was talking about in another podcast, is that Mantha is bringing another element to his game, a physical element, one that wasn't there when he played on the Red Wings. But, he's got that big frame. He fought Justin Falk, and, Justin Falk's a big dude as well. But guess what? Anthony Mantha towers over him, and if he really ramped it up, I just don't think that Anthony Mantha really has that Tom Wilson, or Hathaway, just I'm going to beat the crap out of you in him. But he was willing to stand up for himself, and that was a good sign. Faravari was another one that had a big physical game out there, and just a real happy surprise to see him out there. This is his first year with the team, and he would, if it wasn't for Chara with the Capitals last year, chances are that Faravari would have been on the big team last year. But Faravari has been playing big all season, and he played big tonight. Shen then goes on, and it's 4-2 Blues. Nothing Vitek could do about it. Sherry fell into him. He was kind of pushed into. And then Mantha and Falk were mixing it up. Blues 1 for 3 on the power play for the night. Perron empty netter. It's 5-2. So it was a tough game out there for the Washington Capitals. Like I say, I think that they ratcheted up the pressure where it needed to be ratcheted up. It didn't seem like it was enough for the Washington Capitals out how they played tonight. But like I say, they are playing the Sabres and the Devils, two teams that are not playing particularly well. So hopefully the Capitals can get back in the win column. So after the break, we are going to talk about the Capitals team on ice, who's on, who's off. And then later in the podcast, we will talk about the Capitals at the trade deadline. Did they do enough? But first, HelloFresh. HelloFresh delivers pre-portioned ingredients to your door, including farm-fresh produce that arrives within a week. So you get convenience without skimping on quality. Skip the trip to the grocery store, saving you wait in long lines and ensuring you don't waste money on excess foods. HelloFresh has fit and wholesome recipes for satisfying and nutritious meals that you can feel good about, with 6 recipes per week to choose from, including a low-calorie and carb-conscious options. Warm yourself up from the inside out with limited edition recipes inspired by cozy classics from around the world, like beef tenderloin and cheese fondue, or miso sesame shrimp and bacon ramen. So, I think that we're all so busy right now in everyday life. I can speak about this from personal experience. I got 2 kids at home. I work a full-time job. I come home. I necessarily don't have time to be going to the grocery store and picking up food. It's just so nice with HelloFresh that everything is waiting for you and it's ready to go. So I don't have to waste any time, when I'm not working, going to the grocery store. With HelloFresh, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to take on the night and move on with my day. Go to HelloFresh.com/LockedOn16 and use code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's right. Go to HelloFresh.com/Locked16 and use code LOCKEDON16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Man, I don't think you can really ask for anything more than that. So head over to HelloFresh and save yourself some time. We're living in a busy day nowadays. Who has time to be stopping and shopping at the grocery store? HelloFresh just makes it so convenient. Thank you, HelloFresh. So after this podcast, make sure and go to Locked On Now. Our team of local experts will keep you updated on everything that is going on around the NHL. And we had you guys covered on the NHL trade deadline. I'm just so proud of the group that works on Locked On. There was so many, we had live feeds going for a majority of all the NHL teams. It was just such a great event. So anyway, just go to Locked On now and you will be up to date with everything that is going on in the world of the NHL. All right, in this segment, we're going to talk about the Capitals players that are injured and who's on the ice and who's off the ice and all that kind of stuff. Well, first of all, one of the players that is to be worried about, I guess I would say, is that Oshie and Van Riemsdyk, Dowd, and Hagelin out. It does not sound like Hagelin will probably be back this season. He's going in for a second eye surgery, and that's kind of where Axel Janssen-Fjällby has fit in that role. I think that this is a great opportunity for Axel. He is a guy that's been on the team for quite some time, and I think it's just a matter of time, for him to get his big break. And that's what it's about. Next man up mentality, and it's that time for Axel Janssen-Fjällby. And I'm glad that he's able to be here. But I had also heard Brian McClellan and some of the Caps beat writers talking about that Johan Larsson might also fill that role. So that's what they're going for, is depth. I know that Axel Janssen-Fjällby is not a proven commodity. So I think that that is why they went with him. And they got both those players on the cheap. And both of those players, I believe they retained somewhere around like 50% of their salary. So some bargain shopping for Brian McClellan, to be sure. TJ Oshie is one of the ones that worries me quite a bit because he has quite a bit of goal scoring potential. He also has what I would call a great hockey IQ. He sees the game really well. I was watching this thing about TJ Oshie. He was also a great football player. He played all kinds of different sports, and surprise, surprise, all of those things that he played really well. So, just TJ Oshie, they miss him on ice, and he's just he's a good guy in the locker room. If you've ever seen, there's those videos with Tom Wilson and TJ Oshie, and he's just a happy guy to be around. But they will miss him mostly out on the ice and the skill set that he brings. And some good news that I noticed tonight is that John Carlson was back out on the ice. I was a bit worried about him. John Carlson, who, he carries a bulk of the mail for the Washington Capitals for the defense, but he also has a great scoring touch out there as well. So just great news to see John Carlson back out there. When he got injured briefly during that last game, I was a bit concerned if he was going to be back or not. And it's a good sign that he was playing tonight. I know that sometimes these players play through injuries, but like I say, just a good sign to see John Carlson back out there. They do not need to be suffering any more injuries out there, more than they already have. And then at Trevor Van Riemsdyk, there's guys that are going to be stepping up and playing those roles when he's out. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's next man up. And with Van Riemsdyk out, it's going to have to be the next one up. And then with Nick Dowd out, he's on the third line with Hathaway, and it was Hagelin, but now it is Axel Janssen-Fjällby out there. So it would be nice to get Dowd back, just because that line has so much production. And don't call them the third line, because they get a bulk of the scoring out there. So we're really hoping for a speedy recovery for Dowd. Like I say, it doesn't look too promising for Hagelin to be coming back, as he's going into his second surgery on his eyes. So those are things that are worrisome. And, it's not just about hockey. I'm thinking about Hagelin as a person. Your eyes, you only, to state the obvious, you only have two eyes. So if one of those gets messed up, that's bad news. Not just your hockey life, your personal life, your day-to-day life. So let's just kind of have our prayers and hopes, or whatever you believe in, go out to Hagelin, that he is going to be okay. Because, it was one of those things, not that it would have made it any better, but he got injured in a practice at MedStar. So just a kind of a crazy fluke situation. There was a bit of a video that showed a little bit of what happened. You really couldn't make it out, but it makes you wonder. They wear those full face shields in college. I don't know what the rationale is why they don't wear those in the NHL. It's the most physical league out there. I don't know if it's aesthetically that it doesn't look as pleasing, or what the case is, but with all those pucks flying and high sticks going on all the time, you think it would be advantageous for them to have those big masks over their face just to protect them with all the eye injuries. I mean, I've seen players with broken noses and eye injuries and all that kind of stuff. It's something that maybe should be reconsidered. Like I say, I'm not entirely sure the nature of his injury, but obviously it was severe enough that he had to have 2 surgeries on his eyes. So just wishing the best for Carl Hagelin. All right, in this next segment, the last segment of the show, we are going to talk about the Caps at the trade deadline. As we talked about, they picked up a familiar face in Marcus Johansson and then Johan Larsson as Brian McClellan went bargain shopping. So we'll talk about that after the break. But first, it's that time of year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's my favorite part. I love chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yeah, the Puffs too. 100% real chocolate. They're low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Ouch. We're all looking to lose some weight in this new year. No need to be eating junk food. That's why I eat Built Bars. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and the big thing, 17 grams of protein. That's what you need. Protein, not all that other junk. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks, Built. All right, like I talked about in this final segment, we talk about the Capitals at the trade deadline. I was almost assured that, and I was almost 100% sure they were going to pick up a netminder. But alas, it's not meant to be. Brian McClellan said unless Marc-Andre Fleury made himself available to the Washington Capitals, he was willing to take that deal, that he was going to pretty much not pick up anyone. And he was a man of his word. He didn't. So the Capitals are prepared to go with Vitek Vanacek and Ilya Samsonov or Zach Fucale or Phoenix Copley. But let's get real here. It's most likely going to be Samsonov or Fucale. And just based on the way the Washington Capitals go about their business, I would be willing to say most likely Vitek Vanacek and Ilya Samsonov. They want to die on that hill with Ilya Samsonov. Don't ask me why. If you were asking me, I would have gone with Zach Fucale. But considering, I can't argue with them. Marc-Andre Fleury, they were saying that if they were going to get him, and I didn't see what the haul is, what the Wild got for him, but the Wild definitely improved by far. They made some big moves, and they picked up Marc-Andre Fleury. I would say that the Minnesota Wild are poised to do rather well in the playoffs. So it remains to be seen, but they're kind of teetering a little bit there too. I know they have kind of a lead going there, but hopefully the wheels don't fall off and it doesn't blow up in your face, because sometimes you do that and it does. Maybe the guy doesn't have good chemistry, or even a worst case scenario, you kind of sell the farm to get a guy and he ends up getting injured. Just a disaster waiting to happen. So all in all, I guess I'm happy that the Capitals did what they did. They picked up some depth forwards. I guess I would have been happy if they would have picked up some depth in defense as well, just considering the injuries that they have on the blue line. But, all you can do, like I say, I think that they saw the condition that the Washington Capitals are in. Are they poised to make a Stanley Cup run? Possibly. But I don't think that they wanted to go and just keep giving away futures, draft picks, or, big names that are on the ice now, because that they would have been targeting McMichael, Fervari, Hendrix Lapierre, someone like that. You don't need to be giving up futures. So I think that Brian McClellan did the right thing. And then bringing Marcus Johansson back was a good thing. He has a rapport with the Washington Capitals, as you know, especially with Nick Backstrom. And what I read before I came on the podcast here was that Nick Backstrom was tipped off that he was going to be coming back to the Capitals. As you know, those two men are from Sweden and kind of just share a special bond with each other, probably because they're both from the same part of the world together, and kind of similar personalities, I guess. I was actually lucky enough to meet Marcus Johansson when I was at what they called Kettler at the time 5 years ago. And Marcus Johansson just happened to be walking outside Kettler, and I got a picture with him. Boring story later. It was a fun experience. So anyway, Marcus Johansson back on the team and a good depth forward. And it just kind of depends on where they slot him in. I guess it depends on how he plays. I know that Marcus Johansson, they picked him up because he has a good hockey IQ. And he's probably not going to make some careless, stupid play out there that, I hate to say some of the younger players make based on them trying to be heroes and inexperience. So let's hope that Marcus Johansson and they made the right decision, because a lot of times you don't know until they're actually out on the ice and playing. So, like I say, hopefully they made the right decision. I just think that they could have probably picked up, like I said, a depth defenseman. But as it stands right now, that is where the Capitals are. This is the team that's going to be going into the playoffs. And Caps Nation, how do you feel about it? Hit me up on Twitter, Caps218. Do you think the Capitals made the right decision? Do you think they made the right decision not picking up a netminder? If you looked at the list that was out there, it wasn't too promising. It was Korpisalo, and the Capitals played Korpisalo not long ago, and I got to say, not too impressed. I would rather stay pat with what we had. Like I say, Marc-Andre Fleury, I'm looking back on that one, and I'm thinking to myself, would that have been a good idea? Not for the reasons that you would have to give up too much to get him on the team. And I don't like the way that goes down. So I think that the Capitals made a good decision, and I think they kind of have their eyes on the horizon, as you should, because you don't want to get too concentrated on win now mode, except maybe if you're like Florida, if you saw they picked up Claude Giroux. But they're kind of in a position right now where big things could happen for the Florida Panthers. So I guess if the Capitals were in a position like that, sometimes you got to go all in, because this is a team that's playing very well. They just need a couple extra pieces to catapult them over the top. So I can see that making sense for the Florida Panthers. And there's some other teams. Max Domi, he was another one that was rumored to be coming to the Capitals, but at the end of the day, the price tag was just too high for him. So that's why the Capitals went with who they went with. And I think, like I say, I think that Brian McClellan went out there and went bargain shopping, and he picked up some veteran forwards that I think will serve the Capitals well as they make their push for the playoffs. All right, that is the Locked On Capitals podcast for today. So I want to thank all of you for joining me today. If you're joining me on a podcatcher, whatever, Apple, Google, Spotify, or YouTube, yeah, that's right. Check us out on YouTube. Check out Locked On Capitals. And it's more visually pleasing sometimes to actually see it. Not that I'm anything to look at, but it's something to look at instead of just listen, I guess, unless you're driving around in your car. And to be honest, that's where I listen to most of my podcasts anyway. I'm on my morning commute. And I hope that's how you listen to the show as well. Anyway, now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And once again, I want to thank you for joining me here on this edition of Locked On Capitals. I will talk to you guys again tomorrow. Thank you for listening.